Hi everybody, Ricky here from Connerty Meadows Farm. Today I thought I would start our garden tour in the actual veggie garden. Now normally when I start garden tours, I'll start at one end of the property or the other, but I thought today we'd start with the actual veggie garden since I know that's what most of you are looking for. Now please excuse if it's a little bit windy. I'll try my best to make sure that the microphone can still pick up through the wind. This has actually been the first cool-ish day we've had in quite some time. We've had really a huge heat wave kind of come through in Ontario here where we're at in Canada. So it's been a bit different for us. Lots of watering and caring for the animals in the garden. But let's go ahead and get started here. I'll flip you around and we'll go through everything that we've got in the garden. So here in the first bit of the garden, in pots, we have peppers. So these are all my hot peppers here. And the reason why I keep them in pots is because here in Ontario, Canada, we have a very short growing season. So this way I can actually extend my growing season by putting these pots at the end of the season into, hang on, that chicken tractor in the fall. I end up putting tarps all around it, and so I can close it in and I'll get an extra 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks depending on how cold it gets, for all of the peppers, both hot and sweet. I have the sweet in a different part of the garden, but here this has been the best way for us to grow peppers. Now you can see they are pretty thirsty, so as soon as I'm done videoing, I will be watering everybody here. There's many different kinds of hot peppers here, and we use all these hot peppers to make salsa for my husband, hot peppers, pickles for my husband, and as well as hot sauce for him. I am not a hot person, so this is all just what I do for him. And there is a rosemary stuck in there too. Yesterday I spent the day trimming and tying our tomatoes. Between heat, we've also had an unprecedented amount of rain here in Ontario, Canada, so we are dealing with some yuckies, and I'm doing my best to stay on top of it, and therefore I am pruning very, very heavily. It's the only way that I am able to keep the tomatoes somewhat healthy, and I'm hoping that they'll make it through to harvest time. Now just on the other side of the tomatoes there, and I will pop you around, we'll walk this way. On the other side of the tomatoes there, I have some squash. So I have patty pan squash here, this first one, and I did harvest a bunch yesterday. And then I have the long zucchini, and then another zucchini, and on the end is another patty pan squash. And we also have corn. So some of these are called early Canadian variety, and the other one is Bootylicious. Both of these corns are sweet corn, and they do really, really well here. These guys are already tasseling up. These guys are just slightly behind. Some of this got eaten by the birds. So I'm thinking this end piece here is probably a little bit later than this, because this I had to reseed because the birds took it out. And then here I have cucumbers going up this trellis. And then I have some squash going up that trellis, and then some more cucumbers, and then I have watermelon and cucamelon there down on the end. This is potatoes in here. Now I know I'm going to back up so you can see this. So I actually have 4 rows of potatoes in here, and in the middle I plant a pumpkin, and I kind of just let that pumpkin run wild, and as you can see, it is definitely running wild. It's actually gotten that way, so I've got to get in, grab it, and then like kind of make it go this way because I don't want it going all the way over. Now there is that middle squash there, and it is going up, but some of it's running, and that's okay. I will let it run through the corn. Quite often when I plant my garden, I will plant the corn and the potatoes next to each other, and then I'll put a pumpkin kind of in the middle, and that way the pumpkin can go through the corn or it can go through the potatoes, and I don't care. I just let it kind of run wild, and that's always worked really, really well for me. Kind of like the 3 sisters method, but only a 2 sisters method. But it works really well because my potatoes are up and bloomed and done everything they need to do before the pumpkin kind of meanders and takes over. So it works really, really well. And I've been doing this method for years and years. This year I decided to try to put some of the climbing vines between the corn and the potatoes. That way, if they do end up not going trellising the way I want them to, because let's be honest, gardening, you can't get in there all the time, every day, every couple days. I'm lucky if I get in there once a week. So sometimes it ends up kind of going through on either side, and that will be okay. I'm doing my best to keep most of the ones on the trellis, but if they run, they have room over here and they have room over here. Down here, there is 1 row of strawberries here. I've got to get in and kind of move the potatoes off them a bit, but there's this row of strawberries. So there's actually 4 rows of strawberries here. They were planted this spring, so they're not producing a lot, and they're just kind of growing, which is okay. And then all of the peppers in pots here, these are all sweet peppers, and yes, they are very thirsty. Again, I will be watering as soon as we are done with this video. But I also have a lot of people ask me all the time, how do I keep the weeds down? And you can see here the fabric barrier. So these are mounded up and then the fabric barrier down between. You are not a garden failure if your garden gets run over with weeds. If you look carefully there's piles of weeds. It is what it is. I remember at my old farm many times going in between the rows with a lawnmower to mow the weeds down, because even though I tried my best to make sure I was rototilling between the rows, honestly, I just could not keep up. You are not a failure if your garden has weeds. So long as you're still getting produce, who cares? So when we moved to this farm in 2019, I said, I am not fighting the weeds like I used to. I just don't have time for it. So I now use the fabric barrier between the rows only, and most of the rows get mounded, not all of them. Like obviously the corn is not mounded and some of the other ones aren't mounded, but for the most part I mound all of my rows, so there's like a little bump, and then I put straw down, and I get the straw from a local guy and it's not sprayed or anything like that, and I know it's safe to use. So that is what I do, and it works really, really well. There are still some weeds in there, yes. That's because I didn't get to them in time. And if I was to try to pull them now, they're so big that they may actually disrupt the potatoes underneath. So what I have been doing, and you can see a little bit down here where I've got it cleaned up, is I'll go in with shears and I'll just snip them off down as close to the bottom as I can get instead of pulling them. And that way I still am getting rid of the weeds, but I'm not compromising the potatoes underneath. That has worked well, and that's what I'll continue to do for the rest of this season. All right, let's flip you around and go on to the next thing. Now over here we have some raspberries, and they are definitely starting to produce a little bit, which is good. So these are ever-bearing raspberries. They will produce twice in their lifetime. The first year they will grow a cane like this guy, and then they will produce in the fall, and then I'll trim them down to about 18 inches 2 feet, and then the following spring they will give me another round of raspberries. So they're looking really good. This is soapwort, and it kind of has spread and flopped and done its thing. So this is all raspberries here. A beautiful honeysuckle. I'm hoping eventually will make its way down my kids' swing sets. There's another raspberry row here and here. I discovered yesterday While I was trying to weed down there in that raspberry patch, that there is a yellow jacket nest in there, down in the ground underneath the log here that makes these somewhat raised beds. So I'm not going to weed any more of that, and that's okay. And here we are at the raised bed gardens. My gardens are not neat, my gardens are not perfect, my gardens are very eclectic. I have stuff everywhere, and that's okay. There is no rule saying you must have all one kind in a row, or you must group things together. You can do whatever you want in gardening, and that's the beauty of it. And I absolutely love intermingling, and I love volunteers. So what you're going to see in these garden beds is almost like pure chaos, because I like volunteers, and I generally, if they're not impeding what I've planted, I let them grow. I'll show you what I mean. So I have some broccoli in here. Now, I had been taking all of the sunflowers and moving them to my sunflower rows, which we will get to, but somehow I missed this guy and it's gotten huge, so I'm leaving it. This is radish that I've let go to seed. That way you can actually eat all of these guys down here, but I need some more seeds for next year, so I'm letting it go. Oh, I have a pepper plant in here that got completely shaded out by the broccoli. Oh well, it's all right. I have lots more. This whole area here that's bare was actually all full of calendula, and I dug it all up, and I've just left a few calendulas here, but it was just too much. It was like shading so much stuff out. For those of you that have never met my garden kitty, this is Ash, Garden Kitty 1. Usually I'll get 2 or 3 of them out here, but he's generally the main one. Hey, Ashy boy, he loves being in the garden with me. On the trellising here, these are pole beans. There's some zinnias over there. We got a bunch of peas here. These ones are shelling peas, and they're almost ready to be picked and shelled. We have some more radish that have gone to seed here, and some more peas. We have comfrey, and I need to dig it up and try to reduce it again. It has gone wild. And then over here, we have some carrots that I'm saving for seed. And we have a whole bunch of basil. Now, I love to make basil tea, so that's what the majority of this will be used for. And this here, this empty spot, was all calendula as well. This strawberry, so last year I had the strawberries in this bed. I was letting this one get a little bit more established. This fall I will dig it up and put it in the in-ground garden with the other strawberries. The pole beans are coming along. We have rhubarb on the end of the beds. We have some lettuce that's gone to seed. I'm going to let it go. Seeded lettuce, when it seeds itself, is always the strongest. And here we have, we've got some zinnias in amongst the beans here, which is nice to see. And then we have some carrots in here with some onions that have gone to seed. And then this is all this here. I didn't plant any of this basil. I have never had basil reseed. I planted this purple basil. This is all holy basil, Tulsi basil. This stuff, I've never ever had basil reseed, but Tulsi reseeds. So as you can see, this is a very, very packed bed. This bed has so much stuff in it, and I didn't plant it all. I did not plant the Tulsi, just the purple basil, but I'm gonna leave the Tulsi because it's delicious. If you've never made basil tea, put basil in a jar, pour boiling water on it, let it cool enough so you can touch the side of the jar, strain the basil out, add some honey, and then some lemon juice, Mix it together, put it in the fridge and cool it. Honestly, the best summer drink you will ever drink, and it is lovely. And you can mix any kind of basil. Purple basil, when you pour the hot water on it, actually goes blue. And then when you put the lemon juice in, it goes bright pink. But honestly, Tulsi, I like mixing the Tulsi, so holy basil, with lemon basil or lime basil or any of the basils. Absolutely delicious. But anyway, so this is all dill that I did not plant. This is all self-seeded dill. And again, I'm going to let it go. It's pickling season. I'm getting ready to just do my pickles now. Look at this one. This one, also self-seeded. Seriously, look at the size of the heads on that. I cannot wait to make pickles with this stuff. All of this self-seeded. I planted the peas and the carrots and some of the basil, not all of it. Now these peas go purple. When you open them up inside, they are green, and these are shelling peas. And this is my basil tub, and it has Jimmy jumpers in it and a couple sunflowers as well that aren't looking so good. Now this is a mess. Now you guys are going to be like, oh, why aren't you trimming that away? Because over here is my other garden bed, and then there's all this milkweed. We raise and tag monarchs, so by tagging, it's a little sticker that you put on them, and then if they find them during the migration or at the migration site, you get an email. It's a great little program through Monarch Watch, and we do it every year with the kids when we raise them all. So we want to make sure that we have lots of milkweed for them. Now I do go through and cut, which I haven't done on this one yet, but I will cut all those off, the seed like packets off, because I don't want them spreading any more than they already do. I'm already yanking them all out of my garden beds, which again, it's okay. But the bees and the butterflies love the flowers, and obviously this is the monarch's habitat, and because we raise them, I need to have them. So if you're interested in knowing how to raise monarchs, I will link, I do have a 3-part video on how we raise our monarchs, and I'll link it here for you guys. My daughter is the one that does most of the raising, but it's well worth it. I will go through at some point and make myself a little bit better of a path, but for now what we'll do is we'll go to this next row and then we'll switch around and come in through the back, which is open. Now this is lovage or lovage. It's quite tasty, a lot like celery. Europeans tend to like it. So I have another comfrey plant here that I got to trim back. I like to dry it out and then give it to the animals. They tend to enjoy it more. I was in here weeding and trimming and tying the tomatoes yesterday, and I haven't got a chance to fully clean everything up, which is okay. We have some lime basil, some lemon basil. These are the ones that are really good in with Tulsi. We have some volunteer sunflowers. I tried to be really good about digging them all up and putting them in the sunflower row, but I missed a few here and there, and that's okay. We've got some purple basil over here. We've got lots of celery interplanted through all of the different beds. Lots of carrots coming in. We got more green beans over here on the arch. And we've got some onions that are ready to harvest. And more radish pods, which are very tasty. Oop, bump my head on. Very tasty radish pods. More rhubarb. And we've got some more zinnias and plants all interplanted in there. The beans are kind of switching sides back and forth. That one hasn't figured out it needs to go on there. So down this row, we just harvested the last of the lettuce here. I'm going to put in another planting. I like putting the lettuce underneath because the beans will give them shade so they don't bolt as fast in the summer, which works really well. So both of these sides are going to have lettuce. I got lots of carrots here. The carrots all go into storage for the winter. More carrots over here. We've got a lot of ground cherries that have self-seeded. I let them go. So the reason why they're so beat up and I let them go is the cucumber beetles love them, but having the ground cherries all over and letting them go prevents the beetles from going after my cucumbers as much. And you can see lots of interplanting. Again, this holy basil, I did not plant this. This is like self-seeded from last year. Cool, cool. Anyway, this is like a very large amount of milkweed. We go out of the gardens. I do have another little milkweed patch here beside my hascap row. And again, we've left it. We've seen a massive decline in monarch butterflies even since we moved here in 2019. So it's very important for us to make sure that we are giving them a habitat that they can survive in. And we do our best to make sure that we kind of leave it in a little bit of a natural state for them. Now over here, this is all hascaps down this row. And I have videos on that. There's hascaps all the way around here except these ones here, they are blueberries. And we have our apples and our apple trees. And then we have cherries. We actually got cherries this year from those ones down there. And then let's walk you, sorry, I'm gonna switch your sides. So let's walk you down here. So this bed here by the chicken coop, we've got calendula, we've got chamomile, we've got some flowers intermixed, we've got some Swiss chard. We've kind of just intermingled this. I dug this whole bed out this spring, but it's still really weedy. I had kind of thought of actually getting right underneath the wood, popping it up, digging it out and redoing it. Instead, I just kind of went in and redid it, but I should have probably just done it all the way from scratch. A ground cherry that's self-seeded. This climbing thing here is a hot plant. I keep coming in and yanking it back, but it does its own thing. We have some purple yarrow down in here. And then we have a lot of comfrey. If you are local to me and you want comfrey, please let me know. We have a lot more purple yarrow. It's beautiful. And we have a nice little hanging basket there. And then this craziness is all blackberries. We are in for a bumper crop this year. Look at all of these blackberries, guys. This is massive. So we put these in 3 years ago, I guess. 3 years ago. Last year we had a couple handfuls here and there. And this year, this is what we've got. These are black satin blackberries. At our old farm, we had other blackberries and they had thorns and they were wicked. These ones are thornless, which is lovely for picking. And if you don't know about blackberries, they will produce on the second year canes. So this cane is growing this year. This is a first year cane. It's not going to give us any blackberries. These are second year canes, and that's where all these blackberries come from. So all of these new guys are all the ones that are going to give us blackberries next year. But these guys will not. So in the fall, I'm going to come through and I'm going to cut out all of the canes that gave blackberries this year. So I'm going to have to get underneath this massive mess, find the right ones, and cut them and pull them out so that this year's have space to grow and to produce berries next year. They are gone completely wild. And if you're local, we will have these in the farm stand, and I will probably, highly likely, be making blackberry jam and jelly to also sell in the farm stand. So down here we have a few more berries. On this end of the chicken coop, I have a sneaky suspicion the same thing that happened there will eventually happen here. So I have kiwi and loganberry and boysenberry, and we will see what happens. But Looks like this guy's doing really good here. They're looking pretty happy. So these are all this year's canes. So just like the blackberries, all of these canes will not produce anything this year, but they will all produce something next year. Now, about 3 or 4 years ago, I had garlic in here, and obviously I keep missing some heads because I keep finding like little garlic scapes in here. So eventually I think that they'll get pushed out by the canes. So I'm not going to worry about it that much. It's apple trees. So we have 5 full-size cherry trees. And then we have a mini cherry tree up there. I'm going to take you up along the front there and show you what we got going on there. If you guys have been following along, you will know that I planted this whole big sunflower row up next to the road. Now, I did put rabbit poop down and I tried to mix them in, and I was really hoping that they would get bigger faster, but my seeder heavily seeded, so I don't think any of them are going to get very big. They're all very, very little tiny ones. They may eventually grow, but for now they're pretty small. You can see which ones are going to be the dark purple ones. I just took a number of packets and I just like mixed them all together, but I now know for the future that I definitely need to hand sow these so they don't get over sown, which is what has happened here. They've simply just come out of the seeder super fast, and too many of them all in one spot, so none of them are getting enough nutrition that they need. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I put down more fertilizer this fall in this area. I might even put some chicken poop down so it has, like, when the kids clean out the coops before winter, just spread the whole chicken poop down the aisle, and that will have time to break down over the winter, and in the spring be ready to till in and seed this properly. So it's not a complete failure. Didn't quite work out the way I wanted, but that's okay. Everything's a learning experience. This one here, which is bigger than all the other ones, is one that was in the garden and I dug it up and moved it here, and you can definitely tell it had a much better start than some of the other ones because it is just that much bigger. But yeah, this can be fixed, and this isn't a big deal. I'll deal with this. Now behind them here, you can't really see, is my elderberry. So there's baby elderberry there. So I have, this will eventually be a whole line of elderberry trees, and then the sunflowers in the front. I will do a better job next year. But it was just an experiment this year. And as you can see, none of them are super happy. The elderberries, on the other hand, though, are looking good. The ones that are established are looking really good. But yeah, this is just a learning experience. This one I brought over. This one I think I brought over. There was a few in here that I had brought over from the main garden. Again, it's fine. They're just really thickly seeded. You should not seed them this thick. So hand seed going forward. The ones that I hand seeded up at the front of the house did like tons better, and I will show you them. We'll go there now. But yeah, that's chalk it up to a learning experience. It's all right. I will amend the soil. I will make it better, and it'll be better next year. All right, so let's walk up to the front of the house here. We just had the goats here the other day. That's why their water bucket's still there. The front of the house now, we have the meat chickens and the farm stand, which isn't done. We're hoping within the next couple weeks, we're gonna put a load of gravel down. We've got an older bench right there that we wanna fix up, bring it over to put over here, make it all look pretty. And then by that time, the blackberries should be ready, and I'll have zucchini and honey and maple syrup and soap and lots of different products that we'll be able to put into the farm stand. But the front here, We have a bunch of stuff up the front of the house. I'll take you there next, and we'll flip you around and let you see what's going on here. Now keep in mind that these ones, sunflowers, were planted about 3 weeks earlier than the other ones, so there obviously is going to be a massive size difference. But the other thing is, I hand planted these, so they definitely have more room. I think I'm going to have to do the same thing here in regards to the amount of like food in the ground. But the other problem is, so I'm just going to show you like this. So this is our rose bush and lilac bushes on this side, and then I put the sunflowers on this side because I thought it would be neat to have both here. And you can see I do have some peeking out there. I'll take you on that side. But I think what I'm going to do next year is actually flip the sunflowers to here, because they actually were not getting enough light on this side, and the rose bushes kind of flopped over on them, and that way isn't enough room. So I might try on this side. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. My lavender, I've had a number of pickings off of it. It looks really good. And the rose bushes had a great show, and I did get some lilac off the middle ones, not the end ones. This is a snowball bush tree. This was all supposed to be low-lying flowers, but I think a bunch of these self-seeded, so I just left them. I am going to mark which ones are which, yank them out, and hopefully next year have this as flowers at a lower level. Anyway, we do have one beautiful, oh hello bee, one beautiful colored flower. So these ones are a mix of yellow, purples, blacks, a whole bunch of different colors intermingled in the front here, which was kind of neat to do. And then, so this lilac here in the middle is the dark purple one behind all these guys, all these sunnies. And it actually produced dark purples this year. Now look at that. How pretty is that? I was hoping some of these would get a little bit taller, but I think that they just didn't have the nutrition in the ground to get too much taller, and it's okay. They are really pretty. We'll see what the rest of them look like, see what happened here. There was a whole bunch there, but this rose bush like kind of flopped over on them, and that's kind of what happened like the whole way down. So it's all right. It's still going to be really, really pretty. I still like them. And this rose bush was completely obliterated by Japanese beetles, and I picked and picked and picked and picked, and I think most of the worst of it's over now, and I've got some really pretty blooms in here. I'm gonna go back up to the front here. So here we've got lots of stuff that the bees are loving. Most of the stuff in the front of the house here I really have just planted for the bees, because that's what I wanted it for. I'm sure some of you remember the beetle damage from the hollyhocks. Poor little hollyhock just couldn't shine as much as it wanted to. So let's go over here. This was our trellis. This is the first year we're actually going to get grapes. We're pretty excited about it. They're only Concord grapes. Concord grapes are kind of what grows in our area. There's a few other kinds. I do have one other kind of grape on that side that's not Concord, but it's not producing yet this year, so maybe next year we shall see. We have climbing rosebush intermingled in here, volunteer tomato plant. We've got some celery. Over here we've got some dahlias coming in, and then we've got a bunch of different yarrows. I got yellow yarrow, white yarrow, mostly the yellows. This is our spiral herb garden. This is cat mint, not catnip, cat mint. And again, I literally just got this for the bees, no other reason. The bees love it. I got a little bit I have a fountain this year. I thought that was kind of neat. The birds really love being in there, and the nice thing with the fountain is it keeps everything moving. Yes, there's a little bit of yuck on the bottom, but it keeps it from really getting nasty and slimy. Following me around. So my basil's kind of gone out of control here. So this is a sweet basil. You can add this to teas, but mostly this basil is what I use to dry. And it's really good with our cheese and spaghetti and stuff. I have some summer savory in here, lavender, some more celery. My cilantro has gone to seed, so now it is not cilantro, called cilantro anymore. We do have some rosemary hiding in there that I really need to cut the basil back for, but I do love the look of my spiral herb garden. Another snowball bush, and then you can see down here they kind of get a little pathetic in the sunflower range, but some lavender. This down here doesn't get as much sunlight, and you can definitely see where the sunlight gets because the flowers are bigger and healthier and blooming. And then you look down here and they're tiny, although they are trying their hardest. We have the goats in the backyard today, which means that we also wrap the fence in around here. You can kind of see the electric netting over here on the side. And then this is like my side garden area, and some flowers up through here. We had stuff on the property when we moved in that I didn't really have a good place for, so I stuck them up here. Eventually we'll get this all finished off and it'll be nice, but let me flip you around and show you what we got going on over here, because this wasn't in the last garden tour video. Mashy poo. So this is our asparagus beds. When we first moved here, we actually had the asparagus in the ground, but the moles and the voles got to them. So the bottom of these beds are actually lined with wire so that they can't tunnel up from underneath. Now, they would have to climb up and in, but with these guys on patrol, that generally doesn't happen, so this has been pretty safe. Now, I mix strawberries in with my asparagus because neither one of them interfere with each other, and it works as a good relationship. Some people don't like this. I find it works. I have a trellis here. I tried to plant loofah. The loofah died. Apparently I suck at growing loofah. So yeah, it is what it is. You can see the asparagus is all ferned out, and happy strawberries. Oh, I thought I got most of these weeds. I think that the one thing with strawberries is these ones are always the weeds that like strawberries. This is my blueberry cover, and my daughter did pick the blueberries today, but I see she missed one there. So since I put this cover on, we've been getting blueberries every day. Not a significant amount. My bushes are still fairly young, but they are doing really, really well. Now, what you are going to notice about this is, man, it is such different sizes. I'm just going to put that up. I don't want the birdies getting stuck in there either. So when you look at this unit, you will see down here, this guy's pretty short. And then you look like down there, that guy's pretty tall. It's because I have low bush and high bush blueberries. And the high bush one, like the one down there, is really, really tall. So this might not work long term, but this didn't cost me anything. Video of it here. It literally was free, except for the netting, which I got at the dollar store. Back netting was like $3, front netting's like $1.25. It really didn't cost me anything. Binder twine, yes, we paid for the binder twine in its original use for the hay, but after the hay use, this is what I used it for. The trees were down in the bush there from the free lumberyard that the goats have cleaned out, so really, really low key, maybe not the prettiest, but gets the job done. One of the things with like farming and whatnot is you definitely, I guess I made it sturdy enough. I was worried about that. apparently I have nothing to worry about. The one thing when you're farming and trying to do everything on the cheap is you got to come up with some really good ideas. This one worked for me. I'm pretty happy with it. The blueberries are doing really well in it. You can see the bigger varieties are definitely just starting to ripen now. The smaller, shorter varieties have already mostly finished. So like that one's really tall. You can see it all the way over there. That is also blueberry in there. That one's a blueberry. It didn't fruit. I will be planting that in the ground in the fall. Once I take this bed here and I dig it all up. This bed is going to be dug up, broken down and burned. The wood is rotting away and there's just too many weeds in there. So I'm gonna put this blueberry here and then I'm gonna put a couple more blueberries or some haskaps there. I haven't decided quite yet. This one is not covered because there's a bumblebee nest in there, so it's undisturbed. We just collect, and if we don't get them, the birds do. It's okay. I don't mind sharing once in a while. This disaster that got taken over by jewelweed was my garlic bed. I believe there is still garlic in here, and I have to just get in here so I can see there's garlic here. I just have to get in here and harvest it. I'm hoping to do that today or tomorrow. Unfortunately, we've had such a wet year. Like, this is overdone. I can't help it. I will get it out and pull it out and see what we come up with. It is what it is. Gardening isn't always perfect. It isn't always neat. It oftentimes is just messy and doing the best that you can, which is what this happened. I could have pulled all this out when it started to grow, but jewelweed is poison ivy's natural antidote, and we have a pile of poison ivy on this property. So I want to make sure that I go ahead and process this down and make myself some soap and some salves and have some on hand if we get tangled in poison ivy. But it did, unfortunately, really overtake this garlic bed, and garlic doesn't like to be competed with. So we'll see how we do. It is what it is. I'm not that worried. Things happen. And then over there, we'll take you up to the front of the house. See, he follows me everywhere. What are you doing? Oh, buddy. What are you doing? You're such a funny kitty. So yeah, the goats are all in through the back here. They've cleaned that out. You used to not actually be able to see down there at all. And it's funny because you could see exactly the height that the goats can reach, and even the cow. That's as high as they can reach. But the nice thing is they'll be able to get in there and clean that all up, and then it'll start to look like this. But that's all I did, was go down there, pick up some of the dead stuff, and made all of this. Hey, Freya. So the dog is in the house today because that is her dog house and this is where she stays. But with the cow and the goats and the sheep out, she is obviously not back here today. And she is none too pleased about being in the house, let me tell you. Here we have some trees that I will be planting this fall. These are cherry trees from my parents' house, and I will be transferring them up to where the elderberries are at the front of the road so they can cross-pollinate with the other cherry trees that are up there. This is the rose I call an antique rose. This came with us from our old farm. I'm sorry that it's not in bloom right now. Honestly, this one is absolutely stunning when it is, and it smells amazing. I'm so happy this is doing so well. It's actually sending shoots off. It's wonderful. Now, I used to have a rose bush here, but it just kept getting completely annihilated by the peonies, so I've dug it up and I moved it. I'll show you where I moved it to. It's actually really happy where I've moved it, so it's not a big deal. I also used to have lavender and stuff under there. I've dug it all up. I've moved it all. The only thing under there now is tulips, and they are up and bloomed and gone before the peonies come, so it works well. And we have a white rose bush. This guy, Sir Thomas Lipton, I think. Anyway, this guy is going to be chopped all the way back this fall. This was my self-seeded lettuce, and now it's bolted, so we're letting it go, and I'm gonna let it reseed itself here because it did really, really well. We had salad for weeks. Chocolate mint, I've actually harvested from here once already, and now it's coming back and it looks really, really good. We have some skullcap that I just harvested. It's looking a bit rough. I think the bugs did a good one on it. We have some lemongrass here, bay tree. This is thyme, all sorts of different thymes. Apple mint, chamomile, spirea. The front garden beds, this is ginger mint. This is usually a big, massive pot, but I've gone ahead and I've harvested from there. And my cute little handmade morale mushrooms from our neighbor up the road. And we've got a whole bunch of different stuff going on in here. Flowers are not really my thing, but I do try to have lots of them around for the different bugs and bees and whatnot. So the rose I moved to here. I don't know if you can see it in there, but it's actually really, really happy. It was like completely dead and dying, and then the Japanese beetles got to it. It was just so sad, but I moved it here, and not only is it doing really well, sending off new shoots, it's got lots of new greenery, it's giving us new buds, so it's going to stay here. I had to build up around it a little bit because it needed a lot of extra soil in here, and I really wanted it to be able to hold on to the water that falls. So that's why it's got a little bit of that around it. At some point, I'll just move some more plants in front of it, and then you won't even see it in there. And I do have another little tiny morel with that little froggy there peeking out. And the flowers are starting to come in, which is lovely. And if we come around the garage, then we have this side. Now, this is black caps, or some people call black raspberries. And no, they are not growing in a good location, but honestly, I've let them go because it's been a great little snack as we've walked past. This will be cut down soon here anyway because it's already produced this year. It's not going to produce next year. We have some flowers intermittent through here. Hostas, some more flowers and whatnot. Hostas. And then this stuff, I keep digging it up and throwing it up at the front where you saw the other bushes because it's right around our unit and it's not really good here. But as fast as I dig it up, it grows back. It's like a really bad weed. So yeah, that's kind of what we got here. There's one other garden here that I don't show you guys very often. So there's this. That's a barrel of sweetgrass. And yes, that is just sweetgrass. So I will be braiding that. And my little garden chicken. And then we have a weed, but it flowers and the bees like it, so I leave it. And another medicinal herb in a barrel. And thrift store find a mama and baby deer. It's like $15, super cute, love it. We've got some pretties coming along. And then this is also another barrel of sweetgrass, and again, I will be braiding that and selling it at a local store as well as in the farm stand. And then behind me here is another patch of milkweed. So yeah, we have milkweed kind of like everywhere. So that is kind of where our garden is at right now. We got the cow down there, goats over there. So the only place that I didn't really show you is, sorry, making you dizzy here. That greenery, where are we? Right there, that greenery right there is also some raspberries. But other than that, kind of showed you around. If you have any questions, let me know. And hopefully all your gardens are growing well. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you in the next tour.